Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Game Logic from the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube, one of the co-hosts of the Enough to Keep Going weekly games podcast on the E2KG Network podcasting channel on YouTube, back with another episode. This is episode number 309 for the week that was in gaming for September 18th through the 22nd. Here with me, as always, I have my stalwart co-host in crime, Mr. DBQ Hams. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm glad you're bringing the energy tonight, Game Logic. That's good.
I don't. Okay.
We'll see, right? Like, it just sounded cheery. Sometimes it starts off, you're like, "Oh yeah, I'm here, making it through the week." So,
yeah, I'm compensating for being so late. By the way, I didn't apologize to you guys when I came into StreamYard. I do apologize for running late tonight. Mr. Talmaster, how you doing, Tal?
Doing glad. I'm glad you have more energy than my beloved Chicago Bears right now.
oh man, that didn't take a whole lot though. That's for sure.
I know.
All right, without much further ado, let's get to it. Starting off as we normally do with our main GX stories, and we are going to try to get out of here on time tonight. So 10:30 p.m. is when we're looking to wrap up, regardless, but we'll try and truck through everything pretty quickly here. At the top of the order, I'll start with one of my games. I have been playing the Crew Motorfest on Xbox. DBQ reported out on this last week. I had a chance to dip into it this week, and
Ooh, I'm curious now. Yeah,
I had high hopes. And you know, this is maybe a little bit of a mix of me becoming a gaming snob, a little bit mix of me just not understanding what's going on with hardware and performance this console generation, and it's hitting PC too. The game from a performance aspect, Star Wars Jedi Knight Jedi Survivor had a two-part problem. It had some nits that I had with the visuals, particularly when I looked at like water effects and fire effects. This game, the visuals don't hurt as much, but the performance definitely does. In quality mode, which I guess runs at 4K 30 DBQ. Is that correct?
I think so. Yes. Well.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's not locked to 60. That's for sure.
Well, the settings menu, and this is part of the problem. The settings menu is a little cryptic. Like it says, choose between the two modes, quality and performance, and then after performance, it has a comment in parentheses that it says targets 4K 60, but it doesn't say to which of those that parenthetical statement applies. I assume that it's the performance mode, so therefore I assume that the quality mode is 4K 30, which is the same thing Forza runs in.
But I mean, locked at 60 in the performance mode. But yeah, I haven't tried quality mode.
Well, the difference with Forza Horizon 5 and past iterations of Forza is when they're running at 4K, it's actually a relatively smooth 4K. This is not when you get lots of foliage and stuff in the scene, and when I'm in free roam mode and I'm approaching a corner and I get like a civilian, like a regular NPC car, like enter the scene because they're pulling up to the intersection, I see frame rate drops, and the frame rate drops to me are noticeable. And it's just a bit of a struggle for me for a racing game when on PC for years now I've been playing in excess of 90 frames per second at 1440p. And again, this goes back to, I can accept if 4K is still a struggle, right, for these consoles, but what I find bothersome is, look guys, if 4K is a struggle, then give us the option for 1440p. I would gladly play at 1440p, but what I feel insulted by, what I feel, what I have a grievance against is just, you just don't give me the option. And that more so than anything is, when we go back to Starfield and, people such as Ryan McCaffrey were trying to say, people who were complaining about 4K 30 were just fake concern, which I took personal umbrage to as well. I'm like, no, it's not that it's not necessarily that it's solely 4K 30. You want to do 4K 30 because that's the experience you want to have. That's fine. But coming from a PC background and seeing these consoles evolve more towards PC, what I want more than anything is choice. Like, let me decide whether I want higher quality visuals or performance. And for me, I tend to prefer a good middle ground of I want the performance that I can get, with a modicum of visuals. I hit my threshold and cap of where I'm concerned about visuals much sooner than when I'm concerned about performance. I won't go so far as to say the game is a carbon copy of Forza Horizon 5, except for one mode. I will say the cross country mode. That sucker is a carbon copy of Forza Horizon 5. I mean, it is literally looks like the exact same. A weird thing.
With like the banners and right. It is very much. I mean, granted, it plays well. It's not. It's a good copy, but it's not necessarily original.
Yeah, and I would say actually, as far as driving physics and fidelity goes, and the physics model fidelity, cross country is probably one of the better modes. When I am on, I find when I'm on the rain slick streets is when I just like the physics model. Just like, look, I know that there's going to be slip and loss of tire grip, but I feel like it gets way overly on some of those tracks. I do, from a nostalgic perspective. I mean, I kind of like a bit of what I'm getting. It gives me that Test Drive Unlimited vibe back from the Xbox 360 era, and so I really like that. Another thing I don't like is I don't like being able to turn off all other people, human beings present in your game. Like you just see them kind of tearing through your game in the middle of their own races. And I'm like, okay, I would prefer to turn that off, particularly when the game is taking a performance hit, because that's another time when I can see like frame rate drops when I get 8 racers scream through my scene.
That is an odd choice, though, right? I mean, in terms of if you can't interact with them, so then why ghost them if there's not like you can meet up at some point? I don't know. I haven't figured out what it serves.
Right, exactly. And again, we're talking about, console generation 9, right? And back, 3 console generations ago, 2 console generations ago, we had a game where you could turn that off, set in the exact same setting in Hawaii. So I'm like, I don't get it. There are some other kind of graphical quirks, like in this game, you don't have barns, you have treasures. Which actually I'm kind of okay with because barns, I've stopped being bothered with it in Forza Horizon 5 because I love barn hunting, but it takes a lot of time. If you're going to sit down for like a 2-hour session, it takes a big chunk of time. And the problem is I stopped because I'm like, I go after these cars, I feel rewarded when I obtain them, but I don't know that I'm ever going to drive them. For anything other than like the immediate transit, like from right after I gain them or right after they become available. So I do go after the treasures though, because they're slightly more convenient. But I will say, a lot of the treasures are located like off to either side of the road or the track that you're on. And then there I have seen like some weird graphical artifacts, like, I go out on, like a rock outcropping, and my car is sitting on top of it, but like 3/4 of my, a quarter of my tire at the bottom is sunk through the bedrock, right? So I'm just looking at this car with flat tires, really flat tire bottoms, sitting on top of the rock. So it's just, I hate to say it, but I hope it's a game that's gonna see some graphical improvements as it goes on. I may double dip and get this on PC, because I feel
why did you, sorry to interrupt, why did you choose Xbox versus PC in this case?
Just, diversified portfolio. At any one moment in time, I may choose to go scorched earth with a PC game store. So it's kind of unfortunate that because of the weird, goofy exclusivity deals that Ubisoft makes, this game is only on the Epic Game Store, so it's not on Steam. The biggest problem to that is I don't have, the most reliable review community in the industry, which is the Steam community. So I can't, I won't get that. But the game is overall kind of fun. But, it definitely, I'm not a huge fan of this whole, well, that doesn't look next gen, which I just find is kind of a lazy term that people use when they can't articulate, what it is about a game that's a shortfall. But this is an instance of a game that truly feels kind of like a last gen game. A couple of things that I like. I do like that this game is not focused on you there's a weird place where this game lands. It's somewhere in between a Need for Speed and a Forza Horizon. It's not hyper focused on you collecting, like, you're not like the super rich guy who somehow amazingly inexplicably can afford every single car right on the planet. It's designed, it's got a slightly deeper mechanic in terms of customization. I was very glad to see that they do have community design. That was a big concern of mine, whether or not they would have access to community designs. Because like I look at this age, I'm just not interested in tinkering with designing a car like I used to be back in my earlier Need for Speed days. So it's like, and I really like the sorts they have. They have like most recent designs that have been submitted. They have top 100 designs that have been submitted, which I think is really awesome. So I do like how they have those things in there, and like it feels a little bit more personal, right, in terms of kind of collecting your cars in your garage. But overall, I mean, I feel it's a decent game. Heck of a lot of an ask for people to chip in, $70 for this game on the eve of Forza Motorsport coming out. It's still bothersome that in 2023 we still have wackadoodle things in the store, because actually when I went to buy this game, because of the way Ubisoft has them labeled, Ubisoft has 4 different versions of this game labeled in the Xbox store. They have, this is
right. So there's the base, there's the deluxe, which has a few things. There's probably the gold, which are the 3 standard Ubisoft ones. Gold is like the season pass. So then what's the 4th one though? That's what
you would wish it were that way. What they actually have, they have the standard version, which, get this, is actually the Xbox One version.
I forget that it's on last gen consoles, that it's also on, I mean, which goes to your point of it not really feeling next or current gen when there's still a 1 and a PlayStation 4 version of this.
Yeah, which turns out that's the version that I actually bought, because the labeling is so confusing, but you'll maybe understand that as I talk about. The next up version, the $70 version, is actually labeled as the cross-gen version. So it is the Xbox One and Xbox Series X and S. Now, in my head, my understanding of the reason cross-gen versions exist is for people who are still on the old generation of hardware, but are buying a game and expect that at some point they'll upgrade.
Hold on a minute. So you're talking about the performance, and you're running. Does it eventually upgrade to a Series X or
Oh, no. Yeah, sorry. I didn't complete that story. I was going to go through all the versions that there were in the back.
I just wanted to like circle back to.
Yeah. I bought the Xbox One $60 version, but when I went through a series of like wonkiness of like, I bought it, like it didn't, for whatever reason, it didn't immediately install on my Xbox. So I like went back to the store and then saw the labeling. I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't look right. And then like went back to my games and apps view to see what it was labeled as. And eventually I figured this out. And then, so I'm supposed to buy the cross-gen version? That like doesn't make sense. So I did refund the Xbox One version, which thankfully it allowed me to do, even though I booted. Because usually on Xbox and on PlayStation, once you boot, like, you don't get a refund. Here's another thing. This corroborates my whole theory, though, of when I've said, when Xbox says 10 million players have touched a game, and I've said that number gets created when you've booted and it runs long enough to attach to your gamer tag and put an insert in the database that's on the back end that's tracking your achievements. So this to me is proof of that, because what was clear was that attachment had not been made yet, because I booted it up and immediately shut it down. So at any rate, I was able to get a refund for it, and then I was able to go back in and buy the $70 version, which is the cross-gen bundle for whatever reason. So the third version is actually, and I think, the third version, so there are 2, maybe 3. Then there are multiple versions labeled as the Ubisoft Plus versions. And it gets weirder. You get there's an Ubisoft cross-gen, there's an Ubisoft Plus cross-gen version deluxe that is $99. I'll go back. Sorry. There's a cross-gen deluxe version that's $99. So that gets you the both versions plus all the other like pack-ins or whatever, extra skins or whatever, coins or whatever it gives you. There is a no-cost cross-gen Ubisoft Plus version, not deluxe, that you don't pay for the game. It's just an advertisement, basically. It's basically telling you, hey, if you sign up for Ubisoft Plus, then you'll get access to this game for no additional charge. So it literally is like an icon on the thing in the list when you hit select versions that has no cost associated with it. Then, this is even weirder, then there is an Ubisoft Plus Deluxe $120 version, which still is asking you to sign up for Ubisoft Plus, but doesn't give you any discount. So you're paying for the $99 deluxe version plus the first month of Ubisoft Plus, I guess.
I'm looking at the PC version, and there's a $100 one and then a $120 one. And that $120 one is the one that has the season pass with it.
Okay. So that's what the extra is. So anyway, it's just, this to me, this should not be a problem 3 years into the generation, right? I mean, and that's a mix of blame between, is this a problem because we're still doing cross-gen games and we would hope that that would have been deprecated at this point and we wouldn't have this confusion anymore? Or is this a problem that Ubisoft is just doing something completely wackadoodle with its subscription services and blah, blah, blah? But at any rate, it's a fairly decent game, and I'm having, an okay time with it, minus, it just makes my skin crawl when I see the frame rate drops. But like I said, I hope that this game will get patched and it will go on. Again, I'll go back a couple weeks ago. I'm not going to take off the table that, I've been really impressed as I've gone back and looked at how Ubisoft has kind of, continued to pump, support behind these games during their life cycle. So, but it's got a really short window because I think when Forza Motorsport comes out, I'm expecting, despite whatever nits I might have with kind of the approach path on Forza Motorsport, I expect that, we're not going to necessarily see these problems. I do like the campaign structure. It's a little much, right? It leans in the Gran Turismo era of like, it's not just giving me tracks and cars to unlock. It's trying to make a story out of a thing. And I'm like, I don't know that I need to be bothered with this, but it's not, to me, I don't feel like it's as egregious as some of the Gran Turismo, stuff is about like going to the cafe and making you like qualify for licenses and stuff like that. And I do kind of like the playlists, right? That being like the core format of the game, which kind of, because lots of people didn't like Need for Speed Porsche Unleashed. I actually did. And so rather than giving you again, I think there's an effort to kind of give you a more personal attachment to some of these cars. And so, the first playlist, the Porsche playlist, right? You get, 7, 8, 9 races, hyper focused on you, getting time and experience with like the Porsche, right, cars. So, yeah, I think that's pretty neat. Anything in there that I mentioned, DBQ, that like resonates with you or didn't resonate with you that, you felt differently about?
No, I playing it on PlayStation 5 in performance mode, I didn't really get a lot of those, but I think I could see where it certainly can happen. I remember that in the beta, that there were some chugs here and there, and I just assumed that it was beta, but it doesn't. Maybe that is still the case. And I think you're right. Like, and this is kind of why I asked the question of PC and Xbox of like, it is a hard sell for people that have Forza Motorsport, and how it runs and all that is in it at this point at the discounted price. But for PlayStation 5, people who don't have that as an option, I still feel like it's a solid game kind of aping Forza Horizon, but it is, I think you're also right. Like, the last 2 iterations of the Crew took a while to get to where they were as solid as they are. And so we are still in the first month of this. So hopefully, as you said, that it will continue to get patched and developed.
Yep. And my second, Tao, did you have any questions or any comments on the Crew Motorfest?
No.
Yeah. And then Diablo IV for me, I won't mention too much about that. I went back to play that on my PC campaign where I'm playing a barbarian. And one of the main things I'll say is, Necro is kind of neat from their power set perspective, but when I went back to Barbarian initially, my feeling was, I was like, man, this guy's got to stand toe to toe in the middle of battle. There is no option. He's got no ranged attacks. And, I was having to do like the old Diablo 2 thing of like opening up a town portal and scrambling back to town and getting my health potions popped off and then coming back to the fight. And so I had to go through that a little bit. But what I will say is like he's one of the classes that I feel like, but they don't they're not OP at the outset, and you do have to go through a little bit of that struggle. But like your curve, like your power curve as you start to level up gets pretty doggone dope. You know, I've got the attack now where he can kind of twirl around in a whirlwind and just like, you know, hit people with the pole arm or, you know, his axe or whatever. You know, so, you know, I've got, you know, the foot stomp and the war cry and all that stuff. So actually it's a really neat power set. In some ways, you know, more interesting to me than Necro. But yeah, I'll continue to pound through it. It definitely, what that class shows me, that's definitely a class that forces you to go through the multidimensionality of progression. Like you cannot just like dump skill points. Like you've got to, you know, go level up your, like now my potions do like 85%, like they heal 85 points and then heal another 35% like over time. And that's huge. You know, but doing that, you know, doing the gem socket person thing, hitting the blacksmith up, upgrading your weapons, things like that, definitely helps with that class. Tao, you have also been playing on Xbox, going back to my initial story about the Crew Motorfest. You have continued to stick with Starfield. You want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I did lie. I did have a question. I totally forgot about Motorfest. Actually, for you and DB, because I don't remember if I asked him this last week. But so the gameplay itself, like when you're driving the cars around, is it? How does the car feel? Is it like Horizon, where Horizon was kind of weighty, but it wasn't. It was still kind of arcadey, feel to it. You know, you weren't like if you got hit or went off the road, you weren't like flipping around or anything like that. You know, you stayed on the ground because it's like more or less car physics. But I was just wondering how that plays out.
I'll yield initial response to the kindly gentleman from.
Fair enough. Then I'll say I think to me it still plays arcadey. To me it feels more arcadey than Horizon. I think in some of the like the closed track stuff, it gets a little tighter because you are dealing with tire grip, things like that. But in terms of the open world pieces, it feels more forgiving than Forza Horizon does to me.
Yeah, I'd say Forza Motorsport, Forza Horizon, The Crew, Need for Speed. Like it is just a Scotia Need for Speed, and this is. Man,
I mean, you're not drifting to the same way like a Need for Speed game, so it's not in that type of arcadey aspect. But it is. There's certainly more of that.
But you do definitely have drift events. You definitely do get kudos or points or whatever for drifting, and there are definitely some cars where that back end breaks out like a lot easier.
Yes.
Than other cars. The telltale heart of this game of whether or not it's more arcadey or not is that the game has nitro, which I just initially just went down like a very bitter pill, and I was like, okay, let's climb down out of the rafters about that and just accept it as more in the Need for Speed vein, and you know I'm over it now. But there are some events that are very much you're constantly spamming nitro, right? Which just kind of, you know, coming out of every corner, like you're spamming nitro. And that is a little, you know, I prefer racing games without nitro, but you know, fine, I'll take it.
All right. Yeah. So I still continue on with Starfield. So the week before I didn't have a lot of time during the week, and then kind of played mostly on the weekend. But this past week, I was actually had a good amount of time that I played during the week, and I played probably mostly on Xbox this week, on my Xbox Series X. And like I said before, it runs fine. I haven't seen any issue graphically or gameplay wise. So, but I just kind of I was going through side quests mostly before, but now I actually flip back to doing the main campaign and I've gotten certain things going through the main campaign. I don't want to spoil it or anything. So since I've did that, and I did quite a bit of campaign quests, I've kind of flipped back to side quests now because I'm trying out some of the things I've gotten now. So just trying to figure things out because it's not entirely explained great. in a great way, like what these things are. So I'm just trying to figure out like what does what basically. So I've kind of flipped back to side quests and just doing those, and I've switched out my companion now. I'm not using Sarah anymore. I forgot what the other woman now that I just got.
Andreja.
Yes, yeah, I just got her, so I switched over to her. So, but I can't use her as on my ship right now for some reason. I don't know if I just don't have, if she's not able to do any ship stuff, or if I just don't have the correct ship parts.
Well, remember Sarah. So do you have 3 people on your ship right now?
Yeah, but I even unassigned. Like I unassigned everybody just to make sure. Like maybe I was doing something wrong because I have Sarah. I had Vasco, or I think that's the robot's name, and then I have a third, just somebody I picked up, in my travels. I had those 3, but then, like I said, I unassigned everybody, and I just tried to assign her to something, and it wouldn't let me. So I don't know. Were you able to? Did you change to her or use her, Andreja, and were you able to assign her to something?
I have that teed up to do when I go back. So in my playthrough, I have romanced Sarah to the point where she's in love with me, but I don't think these are spoilers. I think people know, but we're not married. And so then I ran into Andreja, and let's just say I got a spark of curiosity, and now so I'm interested if I can romance Andreja and how Sarah will react to that, right? If that'll create like a love triangle. So, but what I was going to say is, so I don't know why Andreja couldn't be assigned, but what I will say is, if you recall, for whatever reason, Sarah can be assigned as a crew to your ship, but she doesn't cost you crew capacity for whatever reason. So when Sarah is assigned, that's the one instance where you can have, if you have a standard size cockpit and standard size ship that allows for a max of 2 crew assignments, with Sarah you can actually assign 3. But I assume everybody else, you're right, costs you crew capacity assignment.
Yeah, I'll have to look up to see. Maybe I'm just doing something wrong, because I'm using the Mantis ship right now, and that has a good bit of capacity in it. So I don't know, or crew capacity, I should say.
Well, we'll also understand so ship crew capacity is not synonymous with like the number of like the I don't even remember, what's the first ship that you get? Again, the Frontier. So like the Frontier has seats for 4, 8, I think 6 or 7 crew total, but your crew capacity is based on your ship driving skill or whatever. And so if you haven't invested any in it, the default is 2. But like I said, you get, if you assign Sarah, then it Sarah doesn't cost anything.
Yeah, I'm assuming because she's just like part of the story, obviously. But I mean, I don't know. It's kind of weird because the other Constellation people are too. But I don't know. It's just kind of weird how that goes. But anyways, yeah. So just I'm going through that right now, and I'm still enjoying the game, and I actually spent, I think, almost a day at one point trying to do this one quest because I had to go and scan planet. You have to scan like the resources, the animals, the plants, and stuff like that. And I couldn't find like that last animal for the life of me. And then I was like, oh yeah, you know what? There's water on this planet, so let me go to the water. Even though you can't really swim, like you just float on the water, which I thought was kind of weird in this game. You don't like just drown and then get hit back to island, to land, but you just kind of like float on the water. So finally, I was able to find that was like some water shark looking thing or something animal. So I was able to do that and get past that finally. But
so when you were in the water, were you in first person view or third person view?
I was in first person. Actually, I didn't even think about going to third person. But
yeah, if you go to third person, you do actually swim.
Oh, you are swimming? Okay.
Yeah,
it looks weird because it looks like I was on top of the water. So maybe that was just a graphic thing.
Yeah, that may be just how the first person view looks. Yeah, and I think that is the way it looks. But if you go into third person view, you'll actually see the person like swimming freestyle.
Okay.
And then if you go into like sprint while you're swimming, like I think they put their face down in the water, and like, I mean, it looks, I won't say realistic, but it's it's a nice touch, right? In terms of the kinematics of what they show when you're swimming.
Although I do say when you do use a jetpack, I shot out of the water. So it's like, oh wow, okay, I just give you a pretty good boost. So that's kind of nice. So I finally did that, and because now I'm just kind of I'm wandering aimlessly now once again. So which is pretty much what I do in these games. So I'm just having a good time. And I think maybe this week I'll finally maybe get into Outposts because I haven't done anything with that yet, and try to set some outposts down somewhere. Well, that's still one of my quests too. I think one of my side quests. So gotta do that.
Very cool. Very cool. DBQ, any comments?
Nope.
Well, DBQ, let us turn the camera and the mic to you. You are becoming our resident sports expert, as you appear to have put Madden down for a little bit, but
I did
are
really
keeping with the genre.
Yeah. Oh, this week my whole gameplay schedule just went out the window Monday night when I realized that New Star Games released Retro Bowl College. So Retro Bowl is a PC free game and has been out on mobile probably since before the pandemic. I remember playing it, talking about it here, talked about it in our superlative show. Got plenty of Retro Bowl, got plenty of hype through TikTok and social media over time. And a couple years ago, they came out with Retro Goal, kind of a 16-bit soccer or football one. And now there is a college-based football, Retro Bowl College. And so the on-the-field stuff plays out pretty much just like Retro Bowl in terms of controls and mechanics and plays. That doesn't necessarily change a lot. It's the whole off-the-field stuff, which adds in the college atmosphere. And for the fact that we don't have a NCAA college game and haven't had one in almost a decade at this point, like there's a lot of I think I am 10 seasons deep. I'm about 20 hours in. I am maybe 16 hours in, let's say. But it goes through, you start off, you have a number of colleges kind of open to you as a new coach, some in the basically all D1, and some are, it breaks it down in kind of major or minor. And what it does is similar to Retro Bowl, where you don't get official team names, you get the city or the state. And here you get the same thing. You get, sometimes you may get, sometimes it's exact because it's like Iowa and Iowa S as Iowa State. And sometimes it's, Rutgers is in whatever city. And so sometimes there's a little bit of mapping versus the kind of, USC and UCLA, that there's, a little bit different there in terms of the language around it, but it's all pretty much, Oregon's Oregon. And so you go through and you get, I think I started in like, Western Illinois or some smaller D3 or D1 school. And similar to Retro Goal or Retro Bowl and Retro Goal, like as you win, you have the coaching opportunities open up. So I played the first three full seasons in a smaller school. And after hitting kind of the tournament and winning the title, I eventually got an offer up. I got, offers to major schools. So, the equivalent of the SEC, the Pac-10, the Big Ten, or Big X, as it's called in terms of Roman numerals, right? And so you can then, and the way that it breaks down, instead of having a salary cap, you have scholarships money. So you're offering scholarships to players through the recruiting process. Works pretty kind of similar to the draft. So there's a lot of comparable pieces here in terms of, instead of drafting and having X number of first round and second round and third round drafts, you start with like $50,000 in scholarship money, and you can move up. You can, just like you could in Retro Bowl, where you could expand your salary cap by using the credits you earn or paying for credits. You can do the same with your scholarship money. And so if you win major championships, you get additional credits. And so eventually I was able to expand my scholarship money. And as you have players who go off and they make it through, they graduate, if they get drafted, you get money back into your scholarship account. So it replenishes that. So as you can, there is this progression of trying to keep people, but also not having, I've gotten to the point where, as I moved from to team to team, not having all freshman players, because eventually that's going to hit a big piece on my scholarship, and be able to kind of cycle that through. You get, so it came out on Monday. By Friday, there was a patch which then added things in like the stamina that's in Retro Goal, in terms of stamina being a measurement and kind of reducing down. You also have a GPA. So depending on your training regiment, you have players who come in with high GPAs, come in with low GPAs. If your coaching regiment is kind of set to hard or normal, your GPA will go down a little bit more. If you set your training regiment, your coaching regiment to light, your GPA kind of stays or decreases. It decreases throughout the season, but it decreases at a lower rate if your training is light. But then what it also does is throw up kind of scenarios throughout of, your star running back wants to go on a field trip for his class. And if you allow him, his GPA goes up. And if you allow him, it also means that the team morale goes down because people get special treatment. Or you can get, if your GPA drops below 2, you can get suspended for a couple games. You can, pay for a tutor with your coaching credits. Like every game you win, you get X number of coaching credits, like 1, 2, or 3, depending on your number of fans. So there's a lot of parallels to Retro Bowl if you've played Retro Bowl, but there's a lot more depth because of the kind of recruiting college system and just the sheer volume of teams. So it's been a lot of fun. My son also started playing it, so we were comparing notes over the weekend in terms of our teams and our strategies and kind of what our makeup is. The patch that came out on Friday also added in 12 players. So just like Retro Bowl, you could have a 10-man roster or a 12-man roster. Initially during the week, if you set your roster to 12, you still only had 10, and that was patched over the course of time. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun. The unlock, the unlock version, which gives you the ability to edit rosters and colors and things like that, go up to 12, is 99 cents. Like it's such a easy ask in a world of microtransactions on mobile that I gladly would pay a developer $1, $5, just to have a solid game that I can play offline without having to continue to feed the gotcha machine. So yeah, Retro Bowl College is a pretty solid little mobile college football game.
So is this game only a coaching simulator, or do you play on field as well?
You play on field. So similar to Retro Bowl, you play offense. You don't play defense. You have your defense is kind of, it's a stat matchup basically, like depending on do you have defensive linemen, linebackers, and D-backs, and it's number of star players you have, and then your defensive coordinator has a star rating as well, and that adjusts to all the kind of non-star players. So you jump back and forth. It's pretty unpredictable at times. Like I've had some great matches in terms of ranked teams, and I've had some unranked teams go head to head with me where it's just a slugfest in offense, and I've blown out people by 40 points. So it's very much college football. There's a ranking system where it does factor in strengths of schedule. It factors in kind of the amount of, the strength of the win, who you were playing. So I've, started off 10-0 and was not ranked number 1 because of the schedule was pretty weak teams. So it kind of, but I've also had a great mid-season battle of a 1 and 2 ranked team, and it was kind of a mini bowl game in the middle of a season. So it's a lot of fun.
Sounds like it has an amazing amount of depth and detail to it for such a small game from a small studio.
Yeah, right. It is a small studio. Tao, you played Retro Bowl, the original one. Yeah, you can kind of see the parallels here between the game itself is very similar in terms of the football play. It's, you drag it back to pass, you tap to hand off, you swipe to run side to side, you kind of auto run. So it's not a whole lot different there at all.
Does it, does it hook into Retro Bowl? Like, can you take that player?
No, there's no
okay.
NCAA to Madden type of transfer your player
cool,
out.
actually.
Yeah,
That.
that might
Maybe
be
they'll do that
down the road type of thing. Yeah. Yep. So yeah. So it again it's free to play unless you want to do the unlock, and for pennies, it's a relatively small ask for something that's given me, I was glad to pay it because I know if it's anything like the original one, I'll be playing it for multiple years. So, and my other sports game, we'll jump right into go from one non-microtransaction game to one heavy microtransaction game, which is any EA Sports, or actually, or 2K at that point as well. But this is the FC Football Club 24. So it's EA's what formerly was FIFA. They did not re-up the FIFA license and are just simply Football Club 24. And the early release for that dropped on Friday. So if you paid for the Ultimate Edition, just $100, not just $100, but just like the Crew Motorfest in terms of its multi-tier pricing pieces, this one, you do have obviously that ability to give them more money to play early and get a bunch of consumable Ultimate Team cards and things like that. But it's also I was playing it on Xbox, so if you're Game Pass, it is part of the 10-hour trial with EA Play as well. It's a beautiful game. It's a really pretty soccer game. I've dabbled in FIFA over the last 3 years or so, and it feels a little faster. Reading online, that seems to be the piece with it right now in terms of kind of the speed on the pitch. But the character animations, the dribbling, the passing, all of the kind of mechanics just look great, feel good, really solid. It's got a manager mode and a career mode like it has in the past. There was the time when FIFA back in 17 to 19 had a big kind of story mode attached with it as well. That's not the case here. You do kind of in your career mode, from the little bit I've had a chance to play, it feels very much like there is a story going on there, or at least you get you're building that story like you would in the My Career of an NBA 2K type of game. You've got an agent, you're meeting with coaches and press, and you're doing some of those things. So it's got that type of depth to it. The My Career is only male players. And one of the kind of big additions this year is that women's soccer players are now added into Ultimate Team. So you can mix and match. So like even just the initial kind of setup of Ultimate Team that I did in terms of playing through some of the intro pieces and missions, you end up with the option to choose women's soccer stars just as much as male soccer stars. And so it's kind of fun to play a multi-gender kind of, especially after such the summer that we had with Women's World Cup. It's kind of fun to have some of those players in the mix as well. And throughout the general game, that you have both women's soccer and men's soccer leagues in there as well. So it's what I'm curious on. So I will say I'm enjoying watching myself play it. Whether or not I will spend enough time to get the nuance of all the physics, right? Like I do not have the muscle memory of FIFA like I do for NBA, Madden, and MLB The Show. Like this is FIFA and NHL are two games where I understand how they play. I do not know the mechanics enough of the kind of legacy pieces of it to just jump in and know those differences. So I'm learning as I'm going, but I'm also really curious because this year is the first year that the Switch version is not a legacy version. It's not just FIFA 19 with updated rosters, that this is a full Frostbite Switch version. So I've actually ordered that. I'm picking that up next week when it launches. So next week I'll be able to give kind of a little comparison here. Looking online, graphically, rightfully so, it looks a whole lot more limited, but the ability to kind of play it on the go, play it sitting on a couch, kind of curled up on a handheld. Also, in some ways, I kind of just want to support the fact that EA put a real sports game on Switch after not doing anything and never porting Madden or NHL. to see that there's a little bit of a market for that. So.
I had a question and I forgot it. So on the Switch, and I can't remember with the versions I played on Switch, are you able to log in to your Origin account so that you can have the season available on both Xbox and Switch?
I hope so. I'm going to try to research that this week, because the Switch version, I didn't pay the $99 for the Switch, or the $100 for the Switch version. I'm just paying the $60. So that version doesn't release until next Friday. So I don't know yet. I have watched some gameplay of the Switch version and some comparisons, but I haven't dug too deep. If like it logs me into my EA account on Xbox because I'm already linked there. But yes, I would hope, but I would need to dig into that to see. Because if I could keep them together, that would be a nice feature to have both of those kind of be able to play on the TV and then swap to handheld and keep going with things.
Yeah, being somebody who had to unlink an Ubisoft account from my Xbox and relink my valid Ubisoft account, I was pointedly, in playing the Crew Motorfest, I became pointedly aware of how a dynamic today is if you've been around long enough gaming, you may be carrying this legacy baggage of when games would kind of force you to create third-party publisher accounts, where if you hadn't already created one on PC, or back when maybe you had created one on PC, but the only way to link them was to enter your, what for me is extremely complex passwords on a console, which I was just like, we're not doing that. So it's nice today that, for a lot of these things you can, because I can remember when the first time that I tried to get all this straight, there was no way to do it. You had to call in to tech support, right, for the third party publisher and have them unlink a console account and link it to a new account. So I was able to do it today with my Ubisoft account from my desktop, PC desktop browser account access. So hopefully those, if you are able to link them, that will be a relatively easy process. But we've been around long enough for me to remember how that used to be extremely painful. So that's awesome, man. I'm very glad to hear about, I frequently buy the FIFA, games, or now the football club games, but don't spend a lot of time in them. So it's good hearing that the Frostbite polish up. And what we're seeing a lot on EA now is how, Frostbite has now been around long enough and they've learned enough lessons from it, that I think I see indications that the model is a little different now, in terms of how that thing is being supported. And I don't think they're getting as much of the stiff arm from the DICE developers on Frostbite like they used to. And what I see now too is individual teams are now taking Frostbite and doing what I always said they needed to do and they needed to have time to do, which is they're building tools and other components, modules around the things that they need to apply that engine to their specific game, which I don't think a lot of people understand. Like the Unreal Engine that's at use at Xbox may look entirely different from a tooling perspective than the Unreal Engine that's in use at a studio, right, for a PlayStation studio, right? Because they build things out and they build toolkits and they build models and things that are applicable to the things they're doing. We go back to Call of Duty and we talk about one of the great things about Call of Duty is when you have all of these studios using, that engine, there are teams that may have a thing that another team may need, right? Infinity Ward may have created a Jeep model that, in a couple of years Sledgehammer might need. So, we're starting to see, the software reuse that warranted the company and the corporate investment in Frostbite starting to take hold with some of these teams, I think.
Just I was going to say a quick search looks like Ultimate Team players' coins do not transfer between platforms. So I can try to confirm that next week, but looking online quick, that looks to be the case. Why let you not pay more than once?
And that's not saying it's makes it okay, but that is the same thing that Call of Duty does, where you're all of your like stats and there's continuity between your account, but your currency doesn't convert between platforms.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the nice option of what Sony San Diego does, right? If you're playing MLB The Show between PlayStation or Xbox and also Switch, or actually any of those three accounts, your Road to the Show character and your Diamond Dynasty stuff all can link together and stay consistent. So you can kind of jump back and forth.
Very cool, very cool. Tao, anything on Football Club? Okay, let's pound the pavement and get into segment 2 and get through all this stuff in 26 minutes, and then leave Tao time to talk about F-Zero 99 at the end here. DBQ, you want to kick us off with your first news story?
Sure, we'll hit these relatively quickly. Last week we talked about Unity. We had quite a good conversation around Unity and their announcement the week before in terms of charging for installs. Then they started to kind of walk that back a little bit, or at least kind of pull back at the end. By the time that we had done our show last week, they had kind of pulled that back, but hadn't said what was coming out next. And this week, toward the end of the week, they've announced what is coming out next. On Friday, they announced that they are not charging for install fees for personal licenses, that personal license any personal license used to hit kind of 100,000 in revenue. Now it's being up to 200,000. That Unity Personal will not need to have, this is coming off of gamesindustry.biz from Brendan Sinclair. Seems like such a, we're trying to win back some goodwill from the community, that they do not have to have the Made with Unity splash screen on them. That really the charges that they are looking to implement are for Unity Pro and Unity Enterprise. So they will have a 2.5 revenue sharing based on the developer's self-reporting revenue. That it will. One of the other pieces here is that the fee was going to be retroactive, right? Any of the installs, any of the pieces, it is being things that are shipping after 2024 or 2024 and later. So I think the piece here that one of the things we kind of alluded to last week was they pushed really far. And, in the negotiating process now, this is the middle ground. I think for the bigger pro and enterprise pieces, that's where there's probably more money to make on a corporate end. I do wonder though, like, to what degree has the damage been done? Like, Unity for quite some time was kind of a darling of indie developers, that if they were willing to kind of push in this direction, how much of that trust, right? I think some of the other articles and analysis around this that I've read over the course of the week is how much of that trust has been lost throughout this process. And does this kind of not necessarily a make good, but kind of a revamped fee structure, is that enough for smaller developers? And as we talked about last week, like for some smaller developers, they were never really going to hit this. It was really a question of kind of where that threshold of revenue was. So Game Logic, you had some great analysis on this last week. Did you get a chance to kind of look at where the new status is in terms of what they're looking to charge for?
A little bit. I think to me, the thing I mentioned in our chat was, Tao asked last week, had we ever seen anything like this per install fee before? And, backing away from the podcast, I had a little bit of time to kind of think about it in a clearer space. And I will say it wasn't a direct developer charge, but I would say that a similar regime was the way. And again, it seems weird to say that this is showing our age, because I realize now that there are gamers in the space who never experienced this. But back in the day on PC, your license used to only entitle you to one instance of an install. So you would install that game on a PC, and and then you weren't allowed to install it on a second one. And a lot of times the DRM would actually tie on the back end, that instance of that installed to a machine ID or something. And when it would see, if you were network connected, it would see that you were trying to install it on another PC. It would say, hey, is this replacing, your install? So, back in the day before, digital DRM went into place and Steam and all that stuff. So, that was, and I'm sure that was linked in the back end to fees and terms and conditions with the developer as well. So it wasn't in our face. We didn't see it, but I'm sure it was there. And the other thing, you mentioned getting a chance to kind of pull the thread and read some more about this, after we got away from the podcast. And, one of the things that I was reminded of that I'd forgotten is remember that Unity became successful because it became the alternative to Unreal. That Unreal used to be the 800-pound gorilla that people didn't like dealing with and didn't like some of its draconian fee structure. And it was not a thing that it was a palatable, cost item to pick up and for an indie developer to go down that route without some disadvantages. And Unity came into the space and it was like, oh my God, this is like so much better. Like the fee structures, so I think, I don't want to be overly, but like the reason we saw the outcry about Unity changing its fees is we wouldn't have seen that outcry if it wasn't super popular and if it hadn't gained a ton of market share and traction with indie developers. But like I said last week, for all of the outcry, what I didn't see is a lot of people glomming on to Epic's attempt to say, hey, come on over here to Unreal, we're going to make things better for you. I didn't see like a lot of cheerleading and hooping and hollering saying, oh yeah, I'm done, I'm going to Unreal. So I'm going to enter into argument that Unity may have had some goodwill to burn, just in terms of its market share and traction, that it could afford to give up before, things necessarily became extreme. The reality is where we're going to see this bump is, let's say, over the next year as new projects get announced, right? Nobody's shifting game engines in the middle of their development pipeline. I think that's another part of the reality. People who are 50% or more through development of an ongoing title, they're not likely to shift. They're going to finish up what they're doing, and then they're going to make a decision about where they're going next. So I would say over the next year, it'll be interesting to kind of see, if it's readily apparent to us. I'm hoping that Newzoo or what is NPD now? Circana gets some telemetry and put some reports out on, numbers of new projects that are,
who's running
targeting
the
an
Go
engine
or something else. Yep. Be interesting.
Tao, any comments?
There's one thing I was going to ask. I forgot to ask last week. Were I don't know if they were like totally owned or weren't they owned by somebody and they broke off from them not too long ago? Unity.
There was a weird, goofy attempt where they were going to try and merge with, I think, another company that was NFT heavy, I want to say, or Web3 heavy. And I think they broke away from that venture and I think wound up merging with somebody else who was a slightly less egregious, but still a little shady. I can't remember exactly. It looks like looks like DBQ's looking that up. So,
okay. Yeah, I was just wondering because kind of later on in the article too, they were saying, or in the article, they're just saying how they're looking for a business model to that'll work for their for their company. So it makes sense what they're trying to do, obviously, because they want to stay in business. But they might have just a little bit too much all at once. Is all they might have done.
Yeah, back in November of 22, they merged with Iron Source, is who they ended up merging with. So
Okay.
again,
that might have been who I was thinking. Okay, yeah, that was it.
Yeah, I think the other thing that came to light is, Unity has something like 7,700 employees. So I'm going to venture to say that maybe that's not all engineers. And so maybe there's a lot of fluff there. Maybe those are a bunch of account executives or marketing people or salespeople, or I don't know what's going on there. I don't think it takes 7,000 software developers and engineers to maintain that engine. By contrast, I want to say Epic. What does Epic have? Epic has like 3,000.
wow, that number surprises me in terms of Unity having that many if Epic is that small or
Yeah.
comparatively.
I'm having a problem nailing down Epic because
Well,
like there's
you go ahead and look that up. I'll move on to the next story or two, and
Yep.
we can cycle back around. So the next two stories, I'm just going to kind of group them together because they're more of announcements without necessarily a whole lot of analysis to them yet. We got an announcement last week that Criterion of Need for Speed is moving out from EA Sports and under EA Entertainment. So it's going to be working under Zampanella with Battlefield. And it will still have, Criterion will still have kind of development of Need for Speed, but will be kind of focusing its rest of its time on a Battlefield development, whether that's current Battlefield or future projects. They've been on and off with Battlefield and Battlefront. They've done some of the space things in Star Wars Battlefront. They've done some of the vehicle physics and aspects there within Battlefield 2042. Is that the one that most recent Battlefield, whatever that one is as well? So that's the announcement here. Game Logic checking in with you on your research there. Anything?
Yeah, so it looks like Epic has like about 3,700, 3,800 employees, and Unity has like 7,700.
Wow, that's interesting. So, any thoughts on Criterion?
My only thing, and I will look this up while you continue on. Some of these articles listed as Criterion moves from EA Sports to EA Entertainment, but I think I need to double check. I think actually the studio is being split, so there is still Criterion people working on Need for Speed. So I don't know if they're going to rename those studios after the split or what. But I didn't get the impression that it was like 100% of all employees moving over.
That could be, right? Because they do the article from GameIndustry.biz from September 20th. So more information could have come out at that point. But, you know, like it does talk about them still continuing with lead development on Need for Speed titles. So it would make sense that they would kind of partition off that studio to some degree so that part of them can continue on that development where they could pull people to work on Battlefield.
Yep.
All right. So the next news story here comes from the Embracer Group, which has been in the news quite a bit over the last month or so. End of August, we had the announcement that Embracer was shutting down Volition. Then shortly thereafter, we had the rumors kind of even seemingly confirmed from Gearbox that Volition was trying to shop them around for sale. And now this week we get that that Embracer, as they're looking to cut costs, as they're looking to kind of reduce their expenses after their Saudi shadow investor, kind of silent investor money fell through earlier this year. They announced that they were going to be doing some major restructuring between now and spring of 2024. And so the most recent rounds of that are that Beamdog has 26 employees laid off. Beamdog has done a number of the Baldur's Gate original kind of Black Isle ports. It also just recently, like a week ago, released Mythforce. Beamdog was developers on Mythforce, the kind of roguelike Saturday morning cartoon Dungeons and Dragon co-op game. And then another 2 days after we hear about Beamdog, we hear that Crystal Dynamics has some layoffs as well. So Crystal Dynamics had been acquired by the Embracer Group. They purchased them and Eidos Montreal from Square last year, I believe. And now this one is a little smaller, only 10 people. But again, in both of these, or especially in a Crystal Dynamics studio, there hasn't been any other real announcement of what they're working on. We know that they are working with the coalition for
the initiative.
The initiative, thank you. The coalition is Gears. The initiative is the Perfect Dark game development out of Microsoft, correct? Or is it a whole different game?
I personally think the initiative is a bunch of vaporware and hot air, but yes, that's theoretically what they are working on.
Right, like to see where this goes. Some of this does include, the purchase of Crystal Dynamics does include the Tomb Raider IP, which has already been licensed by Amazon, which has had its own struggles in terms of both streaming and game development, and as they just announced their new ad-based or commercials in their Prime streaming. So, yeah, again, I think this will be the first, well, not the first. This will be one of many continuing rolling Embracer conversations as they look to significantly cut their costs. The whole Embracer model of kind of gobbling up acquisitions without necessarily producing a lot of content from them. It'll be interesting to see. To me, it'll be interesting to see what this means for those studios, what this means for those IPs, like how much of this becomes Embracer paring this down to only a few studios, or how much does this become Embracer kind of forgoing studios in general and just kind of licensing out those IPs to other studios and other things like that. So, any thoughts on either of these, gentlemen?
Yeah, the only thing I'll add is, of course, also caught up in this mix was the announcement that they're basically shopping Gearbox.
Yes. Yep. So, Tao, I jumped over your news story, so let's circle back around and give you the mic.
All right. Yeah. So my story is the new or DLC that'll be coming out in December for Sea of Thieves, which will be adding. And they say solo mode here in this IGN article, but it's more of kind of like a PvE mode, because even though you can do it solo if you wanted to, you actually can still team up with two other friends or two other people to basically just do, like I say, it'll just be PvE. So there's no other human people there that you could do battle with or anything like that. It'll just be a co-op gameplay. So that's gonna be called Safer Seas,
And that's locked onto a server, so you're on a server with no PvP possible at all.
correct. Yeah, it's a private server that's just you basically, and then like I said, your friends if you have anybody with you. But yeah, and then the normal PvE or PvP mode will be called the High Seas. They had a screenshot here of the kind of the menu. So you got the High Seas and the Safer Seas. So going along with this, though, you can't do everything that you can do, at least quest wise, on the normal base game. So some of the trading companies. Or the trading companies will offer less gold and reputation when you hand in your treasures, when you find stuff and bring it back to the different outposts. The rank is only capped at level 40 now, which I'm not sure what the pirate legend is what they call, I guess, like the highest rank. I don't know if it's at 100 or if that's a little bit less. I was going to look at that when you get a chance to. And then you can't do any voyages of the Athena Fortune for the trading company also, which I think gives you like top tier like treasure or money that you can get, if you hand that stuff in. So a couple things that you can't do. There's also the Reaper's Bones and emissary systems and faction battles you can't do, because obviously that's factions is against other people, so there's not going to be anybody else there. So it's just you're going against just the AI basically. So it's actually kind of interesting, because as much as I did like this game, but it was very frustrating, and I get it. Like that's the point of the game. You're going out there trying to get treasure and bring it back and get your money so you can customize your ship or yourself or get new weapons and stuff like that. And at any time you can get bum rushed by some other group of people. And normally I'm playing by myself, maybe with my son, and we'd just be on a like super small ship. But you got this huge 8-gun or 10-gun boat coming at you, and it's like you don't have a chance against that. Which I mean, yeah, you could, I suppose, but normally you just get wrecked, and that's it. But this might actually bring me back into the game, and I'm not even sure what level I was at. Probably pretty low, because I didn't play a whole lot. I know my son every once in a while would like to play, so I jump in with him every so often. But and even we'd play a few games, and then he'd kind of get cold on it. Kind of just back and forth on that one. But this, I think it would be kind of a cool mode just to kind of get people, not only get people back, but get new people in, so they can kind of get a little taste of what you can do, and then if you wanted to do the higher seas, the regular PvP mode, you can jump into it and get that. So I'm actually kind of excited about this mode coming out. Any thoughts? I don't know if you guys played too much of it yourselves, or if you'd come back to it now.
I played a little. I mean, I think you're right. Like, it does provide a nice inroads to the game. Like, they've created so much content for this over the past few years, that giving people who may have been hesitant or have tried it and had an experience where they got kind of, overwhelmed by other people, that it gives them a smoother onboarding process. And I played through the tutorial, which I thought was pretty well defined, but when you can modify that to be only PvE, you also can kind of really structure that in a way that can teach people the systems without having to worry so much about kind of getting ambushed on the high seas.
Yeah, I know they kind of, I guess, play with it a little bit, even in the PvP mode, where there's some kind of solo stuff you can do with, was it the Monkey Island? I think was the last update.
Monkey Island, they did that a couple years ago. They did the Pirates of the Caribbean one as well. Yep.
So it's kind of nice that they kind of just roll into just like a whole PvE mode now. So that's kind of cool.
And so, DBQ, your last news story was what may very well be the last in the 18-month long news feed, 18 months plus, of the Activision Microsoft merger.
Yeah, I don't know that we need to. Yeah, I don't know that we need to talk about it a whole lot, because really everybody kind of saw this coming once it cleared all the other hurdles. And a few weeks ago, when Microsoft agreed to basically sell off the cloud streaming rights to Ubisoft, which then Ubisoft would be the one licensing it, and Microsoft would kind of purchase it through Ubisoft, which gets plenty confusing in terms of kind of going back and forth between those, especially if they both end in soft. But that was really done because the UK, the CMA last year kind of shut down the deal based on the cloud aspects. And so Microsoft reapproached that, came at it in terms of selling off the cloud or the rights to the cloud for 15 years to Ubisoft. And now the UK, the CMA, has preliminarily agreed to the approval in terms of the acquisition with Microsoft and Activision Blizzard King.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this works out. So in my professional life, we also have these kinds of arrangements set up where the software OEM vendors are not allowed to sell to certain customers. And so there is this whole gray market phantom regime of these third-party fronts that do the actual sale of like the original vendor software to certain organizations. The way that actually works is that when I need that person's software sold to someone, that third-party storefront really has nothing to do with it. I wind up talking back to the original software creator, because they're going to tell the third-party storefront what price is being paid, and that third-party storefront is going to carry out that order. Now, that little group of people, they have their own ego things where they try and, oh, well, you could talk to me, like so-and-so doesn't have anything to do with it. And I'm like, okay, whatever. So the reality of how that works is nothing like the regime that it was set up to like police and enforce and be in the regulations it was made to be compliant with. So it'll be very interesting to see how this turns out, to see whether or not it really works as Ubisoft being the book publisher, the record label that is the intermediary between selling this stuff, or if Microsoft just tells them, what prices they're going to charge, to different companies for their content.
Yeah, no, I think from the beginning when that Ubisoft Microsoft license agreement was announced for cloud, it always just has felt like, yeah, Ubisoft is going to be there as a pass-through. They're going to kind of wash the money before it goes off to the next place, right? Like, it's the laundromat of the mafia. So yeah, right. it comes out clean on the other side, and the UK approves it. So how much of that actually, and at the same time for Ubisoft, it's guaranteed revenue for them. Like there's not a whole lot that they need to do, and it's kind of a, it'll be very interesting to see what this actually becomes in 5 years from now.
Yep. Tao, any comments on that?
No, yeah, I mean, everything that's been said it's been said. I think we'll see.
Okay.
We'll see if it goes through, because that was just a preliminary approval they were talking about. So, but I mean, more than likely, yeah, it's probably going to go through, but we'll see.
Yep. So we've got a couple minutes to spare. You want to talk to us a little bit about your adventures in F-Zero 99 this week?
Yeah, I played a little bit more this week, just real quick. I didn't do any better than that 39 position that I did that very first match I did against most people, but I'm usually like in the top 50, so it's not too bad. But I'm having a good time. I played one LTM limited time mode, which was just like a team battle. It's just another race, but yeah, obviously it was only 2 teams. So it was kind of confusing because it looked like we won the race, but we didn't win like the overall, I guess, because there's like different points and stuff you can get. So, but we lost basically. So, but that was all right. And it looks like there's like maybe like every 10-15 minutes it like rotates out that mode. So that was the only one I tried so far, but I'm definitely going to keep going this next week and see if I can try any of those other those limited time modes to unlock some stuff for my car. So, and banner, I guess that's all that is to unlock stuff.
Okay. And DBQ, any ideas what you're going to be playing this week?
Well, I'd like to tell you that I'd spend some more time with FIFA, but it's probably more likely that I'm going to spend some more time with Retro Bowl College. So, but no, I definitely will give I pick up FIFA on Switch, or Football Club on Switch, so I'll be able to talk about that next week.
Very cool. Tao?
Other than F-Zero, probably just more Starfield, to be honest with you. So,
and yeah, I'm probably going to keep it consistent and spend some more time exploring the Crew Motorfest and continue to plumb some time away in Diablo IV on PC. So thanks a lot, everybody, for joining in. That is going to wrap the show up for us. For anybody who happened to swing through the live stream, we appreciate you. For anybody who happens to come through later and watch the archive version of this live stream, of this live show on the E2KG Network podcasting channel on YouTube, we appreciate you as well. Please feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you can just receive a notification whenever we post new content. We'll be back next week with DBQ in the chair at the con. And Tao and I will be backing him up, as always. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Stay safe out there. Play the games that you like. Come here to talk to us about the games that you love. Once again, my name has been Game Logic from the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube, here with my co-host TileMaster99 and DBQ Hams. Until next time, good night, good luck, and good gaming. That's going to do it for us. We're out of here.